grew up in a super loving home, had a great childhood, home life. In middle school, I would say I started to notice like a shift in friend groups, and which I think is pretty typical for middle school kids. And I was bullied by a couple different kids, girls can be mean, throughout middle school. That carried into high school. Early in high school, I was raped by somebody who I thought was a friend. It was really confusing. At that point, in my life, my idea of rape was something that happened in dark alleys with strangers, not with people you knew and trusted. And I wouldn't have even been able to identify that as rape at the time. So it was something that though there was a lot of confusion and shame around it, I just put it away. I just didn't talk about it, which then led to an abusive relationship that also where rape was involved again. And I was left feeling, I was a kid who took my faith. I knew Jesus from 3 years old. I asked him into my life, and I remember that pretty clearly for 3 years old. And I took that really seriously. I took my relationship with him really seriously. I went to Bible camps. I went to, I read my Bible. I just loved Jesus. And at one point in middle school, I had signed a purity card that said, that I was going to wait till I was married. And at that point, I just felt totally ruined, that I had let God down, that I let myself down. And so again, I just kept these things to myself, which were pretty big burdens to carry. At such a young age, at 14, 15 years old. And, I thought I was okay. I just thought, this was something that happened to me that was awful. Again, at the time, I didn't even necessarily have words to put to it. But I felt like I was handling life okay, I was managing things fine. Fast forward, get married, start having kids, and I could see a pattern starting where I was hyper vigilant of people around me, where I would shy away from being touched, or, and then having 3 kids, that triggered something in me too, where I was actually getting treatment for my middle child. She had some reflux issues, and I had taken her for some, a type of physical therapy. And while she was getting treated, the therapist looked at me and she needed a break, the baby needed a break. So she looked at me and she's like, well, let me do some little treatment on you for a minute. And she got around to my pelvis area and asked, like, what's going on here? And I was like, oh, pregnancies, I've had some pelvic instabilities, like, from all the hormonal changes and stuff. And she said, I feel like it's older than that. And right then I knew exactly what she was talking about. It was like God just like struck my heart in a way that was like, I just knew he was saying, like, Sarah, you have been ignoring this trauma for a long time, and it's time to heal from that, time for me to heal you from what you've been through. And so that spurred me going into a couple different types of counseling, group therapy, and we did marriage counseling, and it really, I could not believe how much God was just in all of that. I was like, my eyes were opened to how interconnected all of our bodies are, our physical body, our emotional, like mental, spiritual, that they're just all connected. And I could feel like, I really believe God brings things in his perfect timing, and that we should pay attention to those things that he brings up. And it was like, so clearly, this is something I want you to look at so I can use you. And like, I have seen so much growth personally from there. Like, our marriage is in a better place. I was diagnosed with PTSD. That is like really manageable now, where at one point it really was crippling. And I mean, just even in ministry, like how God has healed me from what has happened to me, and how he's used that for good, and whether it's in helping other people's lives who've been through similar things, and just like being able to put a voice to that has been huge. If there's something in your life you're trying to ignore, that you're trying to just like put in the box and put on the shelf, that's the thing you need to look at and allow God to look at, because I believe that he can't, from my own experience, that he couldn't use me in ministry the way he wanted to, the way he intended for me to be used, until I was healed from that thing, until I was able to look at that thing, because it was such a big roadblock for me, even though I felt like it wasn't, or pretended like it wasn't. I mean, at some points I truly believed it wasn't. I'm blown away at how good God has been, not only just through that process of healing, but like the after. I mean, I feel like healing from trauma like that, it's never, it never ends. It's like a continual thing. But to be released from like the shame and like the chains of that shame, and was so freeing, and definitely gave me so much hope for the future, for what God had planned for me, for what God was doing was maybe going to do in other people's lives, through me just being open about my own experience.